Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, January 26th. Thank you so much for joining into our weekly ACA webinars. I truly appreciate you joining in. As we discussed the last several weeks since the election, there will be a lot of changes, and boy, we've not been disappointed in that prediction. There are things flying all over the place. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. That's my promise to you, that I'm going to stay ahead of the curve and try to weed out all of these proposals and bills and executive orders so that we have some sort of roadmap of what may lie ahead. Just as a reminder, if you do want to ask questions, you can do it one of two ways. You can raise your hand icon on the control panel to the right of your screen, or you can type in your questions in the question box. And I'll answer those at the end of the webinar. So just with a little show of the hands, if you could let me know if you see my screen. Perfect. Thank you all so much. You never know. I struggle with technology, so I appreciate the hands. So let's just get right into it. The new administration, Friday, one of the first things the new president did was sign an executive order commanding federal agencies to try to waive or delay the requirements of the ACA that impose economic or regulatory burdens on states, family, the health insurance industry, and others. So essentially, there's not a whole lot of finite details within that executive order, but it is the beginning of the unraveling of this law, I feel, and part of it is if it's going to, if you need more regulation or if it costs money to implement, then that's at a standstill. So that's a good first start. Earlier this week, there was the Patient Freedom Act that was proposed by Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana, and Susan Collins, a Democrat from Maine. And they proposed some different things, and there's some information in the newsletter about it, but part of it is really putting it back in the hands of the state, having some price transparency, advanced tax credits, funding the HSAs instead of a tax credit, catastrophic coverage, pharmacy benefits, improvements on the repatriation of prescriptions, but more than anything, again, putting it back into the hands of the state. So states, from their proposal, would be allowed to keep the ACA as it is, or they can create something different with the same level of federal funds, or they can take nothing and do whatever they want. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of these bills and proposals from all over the place really pan out. There was also 50-plus Democrats just recently proposed this week Medicare for All. That was shelved for a while, but it is back in play. And then Rand Paul also came out with a proposal. It's about 4 pages. I just got that this morning, and I included that in your handouts on this webinar. Some interesting things. It seems to really be shaping up, at least from the Republican side, to put decisions back in the hands of the states, to make sure that the people currently covered are protected, that there's some level of underwriting, but again, protection for people with pre-existing, definitely a focus on health savings accounts, and some of the proposals really change the laws and how those HSA funds can be used, how much can be contributed, what's tax deductible, what's not. So it's getting pretty interesting. Again, I think we're quite a ways from anything final, but again, we'll keep abreast of it and hopefully keep you informed. Next bullet point, Highmark Blue Shield, no short-term medical sales after 2/1/17, which, as a reminder, is Wednesday of next week. If they're not postmarked by January 31st, they will be returned. So that's for Western and Central Pennsylvania. NEPA does not have, or Highmark East, excuse me, formerly BC NEPA, they do not have a short-term product. So just be mindful of that. If you have any short-term meds hanging out there, certainly get those in. There are other carriers if you miss the deadline before the big change that is supposed to take place as a 4/1. National General is very competitive. Capital still has theirs. So, again, if you're writing short-term and you miss that 1/31 deadline for short-term medical, there are other options. In the newsletter and also on our website, there is a new 2017 medical loss ratio form from Cass Blue Cross, and of course that really just kind of determines the group size and lets Capital know where they need to place you in the medical loss ratio bucket. So be mindful of that. Let's see, going through all of my paperwork here, there's a lot of stuff. The next bullet point is on Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. This is for Western PA. They are offering same-day doc visits at this number, and that is what they said is Allegheny Health Network is introducing a new experience for patients who are seeking primary and specialty care for same-day appointments. So starting January 23rd, it's already begun. Patients who call Allegheny Health Network by 11 a.m. requesting care will be offered an appointment for that same afternoon. So again, take a look at that. If you're in Western Pennsylvania, that might just really be something that your clients are looking for. So keep that in mind. Speaking of Western Pennsylvania, UPMC is bringing back their Inside Advantage program. It is a tiered network plan, and the top tier utilizes the hospitals including UPMC Hammett, UPMC Jameson, Warren General Hospital, Kane Community Hospital, and all other UPMC-owned facilities and UPMC contracted physicians. So that is a group health plan in the 2 to 50 and the 51 plus, and it is available for 3/1 effective date. So if you have a group opportunity out there, let us quote that plan for you and see how it fits your client's needs. Well, now we go on to the bad news. Highmark Blue Shield. In December of this past year, December of 16, Highmark mailed approximately 22,000 invalid TIN letters to members. There are separate group and individual versions of the letters that were sent to the contract holders if a 1095B form that Highmark filed with the IRS for that contractor holder for 15 was flagged by the IRS as having a name or tax number mismatched. So if your clients receive that information that the 1095, the IRS could not match it to either a name or a social security number, there are ways that your clients need to go in and correct this. This is in my newsletter this week, so just pay special attention to this. Hopefully all this craziness will go away, but for now it has to be addressed. Highmark new January billing issues with the AutoMap folks. I talked with one of my agent partners yesterday, and she had talked to Highmark. For the AutoMap folks, they had, if they chose a plan by I believe the 15th, and were AutoMap but chose another plan, they would have received a new bill. If they were AutoMapped and didn't choose a plan by the 15th, they're not getting a new revised January billing. They're going to get a bill for the AutoMapped plan. They're not sending out new ones. And what's confusing is, of course, the clients would look at this bill and say, well, that's my old plan, I'll wait for the new plan, and of course then it falls in in arrears and could get terminated. So one of my friends on Facebook this morning, also an insurance agent, posted that if your individual clients have not received their cards or their billing or paid the bill for January yet, have them call their insurance carrier to make sure that they didn't fall through the cracks, that there wasn't a systems error, that there wasn't a billing error, and that they acknowledged the receipt of the application. Otherwise, it could be months before your clients really know if they have or don't have insurance. So if you wrote on the individual block this year, just reach out to your clients and let them know that if they've not received their cards or their billing, to contact their insurance carrier ASAP to get that taken care of. And let's see, Cap Blue Cross Groups. I mentioned this last week. We are going to start implementing the EGems paperwork. We're going to strongly encourage it. And quite frankly, what it does is it allows us to serve you better. When you send in a termination, we can take care of that. When you send in an addition, we can take care of it. And you know, paperwork is completed in many different ways, and that allows us to have the paperwork backup, but also take care of the situation, terms, or additions immediately. So again, if you're submitting a Cap Blue Cross group, we're going to strongly encourage you to complete EGems paperwork for yourself from the group, for the group itself, and then also a separate one for URL to have access to that as well. Last day of open enrollment for the individual market is Tuesday the 31st. That is in a few short days. So if you are still playing in that market and writing insureds, just be mindful of that. Anything after the 31st would require a special election period, a qualifying event, and you know, they are getting pretty strict on proof of the qualifying event. So again, just be mindful of that. Wanted to just remind you, we talked a little bit last week of the BC Edge program, the portal for enrollment in health plans, ancillary plans, and the payroll component that it has within it that you can also take advantage of. And just so you know, there are certain groups that are eligible for the work opportunity tax credit, and you know, Sanborn, of course, knows this in and out, but I wanted to make mention that for certain groups, if the payroll company is doing what they should, some of these groups could get anywhere from $2,400 and $9,600 in tax credit. So I think that's important to know. Some of those group types are members of families that received SNAP benefits, temporary assistance for needy families, SSI, disabled or unemployed vets, qualified ex-felons, individuals who have completed or are completing a vocational rehab program, and it goes on. So there are certain industries that could take advantage of this, and if you want to know more information about that, just let us know and we can get that for you. Last bullet point, Vibra Health. I'm not sure if any of you saw it, but Vibra Health Plan was a new Medicare Advantage plan that came out this year for 2017 sales. They are to be acquired by Capital Blue Cross. It's of course subject to regulatory approval. They are to hold a majority interest in Vibra Health Plan. Moving forward, it will be an affiliate of Cap Blue Cross and remain a separate entity with the same plans for a while, at least at this point, until you hear otherwise. So this was just announced yesterday. So for those of you that are in the senior market, this may be very important to you. You know, it's probably a real positive, but I'm not the expert to know that. I just wanted to at least inform you of the proposed acquisition, and if you have any additional questions, I would say look at that information in my newsletter and wait for additional information from the Medicare Offerings Department. Let's see what else I missed here. Oh, just a reminder, in my newsletter there is 4 editions of the Leg Reg Review from January from Vince Phillips. And he also asks a question specific to legislation that's being proposed in Pennsylvania. So again, I want to offer these things to you not only to keep you informed locally and nationally, but I think it's interesting with Vince's take and his, of course, connections to the state legislature that you know, some of these questions are timely. So if you have an opinion on any of his questions, please just follow the instructions, click on that link, and offer your opinions, and I will pass them on to him. I think that brings us to the end of the agenda, so let's just open it up for questions. All right. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you, Joe. Joe gave me a nice little compliment. I appreciate that, Joe. Mike says, Highmark Marketplace client never got a bill for 17. He called them yesterday to find out his old plan from 16 was terminated, as well as his new application for 17 because they never received payment, quote unquote. He never received a bill. I called and was told they will review for reinstatement. He has to call back in 2 days to check for a decision and possibly make a payment. So again, you can see the importance of all of this. You know, if your clients have not received that bill or their cards, have them call. It's better to get this resolved sooner rather than later, because the longer it goes, the less likely the insurance carrier is going to allow any corrections. So that's very important. Jim asks if signing up now is for 3/1. Absolutely. Any January 16th through January 31st will get your clients a 3/1 effective date. Jay says, what do you hear as to why Vibra was acquired by Capital? What I heard, and Jay, I'm not even pretending to know all the details because I don't. That's not my segment of business. I just don't know all those details. But I think the broader picture was to allow Capital's boundaries to expand by the acquisition in their Medicare offerings. Vibra is national, whereas Capital is part of the National Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, but really only markets within the 21 counties. So I believe that was at least part of the reason. I'm sure there's many more. Joe says, do you know if NAHU is lobbying for us agents so we can be more involved in whatever system they come up with? Figured the answer is yes, just wanted to take on NAHU agenda. And yeah, Joe, yes, they are. Actually, their Capital Conference is the beginning of next month. There are people all over the United States and people from all of the Pennsylvania chapters going to Washington to not only hear from the NAHU leaders about what they're working on and some guest speakers within the Congress to talk about, you know, their thoughts, but also to lobby at a national level as a group to, you know, get our wishes heard. So if you're interested in that, Joe, I can send you the information. And there is always a day on the Hill here locally that PayWho puts on. As soon as I get that information, that's typically March or April. As soon as I get that information, I'll pass that along. Because again, if all of these decisions are going to go back to the states, then our fight becomes at the state level. And we may have a tough haul with our current state administration for the governor and our insurance commissioner, but you know, hopefully there's a lot of common ground that they'll listen to what we've been experiencing. And I believe that is it. That brings us up to the end of the questions. Joe, I will get that information to you. And just a reminder, next Thursday, February 2nd already, can you imagine? We will be back here at 9:30, hopefully with a lot more to share, and trust me, I think that that's a given, that we're going to have a lot to discuss because there's no moss growing on this new administration, and you know, thankfully, at least at this point, the new president is doing what he campaigned on and making these changes, and of course, everyone on this call that's in the health insurance industry more than likely applauds those changes. So again, thank you for joining in. We'll see you next Thursday, and I wish you all a great balance of the week and a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.